Welcome to Impactology Live, and for our next guest, Rita and I have been very excited with our next guest speaker, Sue Brierley. Sue Brierley is the author of Lioness and is also the adoptive mother of Saroo Brierley. And Saroo's story was wonderfully captured in the movie Lion, Oscar-nominated movie, and it touched the heart of millions of people around the world. Now, Saroo's story we're quite familiar with, but in this interview, we'll see Sue discuss her perspective, particularly around the topics of adoption, family, love, and dedication. The interview was pre-recorded to enable Sue to promote her book. Her book Lioness was released on the 3rd of November.
It was a real privilege to meet Sue and to be able to speak with her before the commencement of the book launch. And it was wonderful to hear her perspective, a little different to what was told in Lion, not really different, but really just her perspective of her life, how it was enriched by adopting two very special boys, Saroo and Mantosh. Sue and John were able to give them a life that perhaps they otherwise never would have had. So please enjoy our interview with Sue Brierley, author of Lioness. Sue, welcome to Impactology Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Lioness, wow, what a book. I really enjoyed reading your story, and obviously very familiar with Lion and the story and the movie. But for me, Lioness gave me perhaps the story behind the story. So it was fantastic that you shared it, and I just want to say thank you from the get-go.
Thank you. It was a tough journey, I guess. And, you know, part of me still feels that why does anyone really want to know about me? What effect that will have on people? But in fact, I'm really quite happy that everyone's being positive. So thanks for telling me that, because really I need to hear it before I sort of go into panic mode.
No, not at all, Sue. I think you should be, immensely proud of the story. It's heartwarming. It's absolutely, there's a real deepness in terms of the emotion and the rawness of it, and it certainly resonated. So, and I can understand how difficult that can be in terms of that writing process. What I'd love to know off the bat, I guess, is how has your life changed since the original story, Saroo's story, and then the movie Lion?
Oh, well, there's been huge changes. And really, I was just thinking about that very fact this morning in the shower, about the almost what I consider zones of my life. That early zone up until 16, then another 16 years on until Saroo arrived. And then what happened with him, pretty well another 16 years later, actually, I think it might have been, when he found his first family again. And then, of course, the whirlwind of the world taking up my son's story. So during that latter phase, I basically just tried to enjoy it as much as I could, because I was happy about what had happened. And in a way, I'm almost going back into like a post-traumatic stress, because I've got to live these situations again and again and again. So it's been very different through all of those stages.
Yeah, I loved your book. It was powerful, it was fearless, and filled with so much love. You mentioned the different phases of your life that are captured in the book. Can you provide us a brief summary of the book?
Well, my book is virtually the story of our family to this date and all the things that I lived through, because the beginning was the foundation of my beliefs. So that's quite an important part of the book for me. And that part really no one knew about. So that gives me a very big problem, because now, next week, a lot of people I know that have had not a clue of my beginnings will now read it, as you have done. And then, of course, I moved into the stage of joy, where John and I succeeded in our wish to adopt. So that phase of my story was 16 years of our life that was really happy. We were having a great time. We were striving in all the areas of our life and friendships. And we had a very close group of friends that we spent most of our time with our sailing. And of course, we built a business in that time. And so we were, what I would say as a couple, we were thriving. But we still had that secret wish to adopt, which wasn't possible legally at that time. So we had to endure that phase of 16 years, but we always had that little secret smile between us that, yes, this is what we were going to do. Then, of course, we succeeded. The laws changed, we applied, and we very quickly, Saroo was here, and we were on cloud 9. So we had that stage of just sheer pleasure with this darling little boy. And, we really did enjoy that part. Then, of course, we moved into another stage where we decided to parent a second child. And, those things that I wrote about in the book with the process involved there still deeply hurt me, because I feel that was so unnecessary, so cruel, and it brought about a feeling in me that I hadn't really had before, and that was this bitterness and anger towards other people, because finally my second son arrived and he was broken. And I lay that at the feet of people that had brought that emotion to my life. And I still find that really very hard to write about. I think I conveyed it honestly in my book. I didn't want it to be a sob story or, something that came from a bitter and twisted woman. But, really there is social responsibility. And sometimes in our society that isn't good enough for me.
Sue, how did you and John maintain hope during that time? Obviously, that section of the book is quite difficult in terms of understanding the challenges that Mantosh went through, and particularly before he came to you. How did you and John maintain hope during that very difficult time?
Well, the thing that kept us hoping was love, because there's no doubt that no matter how things were, we still truly loved Mantosh. And so that is what keeps you going. And that is in all parts of one's life, I think. That if you don't have that love, really you can't strive forward. And that's, I think, the answer, really. I've thought about it long and hard, because we spent so much effort in different directions to try and do that. But the mainstay through it all was that we'd already loved him right from the get-go, right from the very first little picture of him that we received on his case study. So that helped us all through, but it was very hard.
And in the book, it's lovely to hear about Saroo's anticipation of the sibling that's to arrive. When you found that Mantosh joined the family, how did you balance, I guess the challenging circumstances for Mantosh, but then also providing that balance for Saroo?
Well, through a lot of the times, just the normal routines of being a family, John and I often separated into two. I would be with Saroo, John would be with Mantosh, and that was to try and keep a sense of, safety and protection for each of us. Saroo had come such a long way and was such a darling boy. And really, I think he did have an understanding of difficulties like that with other children. He had seen that on the streets of India, I'm quite sure of that. So he never really displayed any element of surprise, but he understood this was a thing that we had to do together.
And Sue, you've highlighted in the book clearly about the impacts of overpopulation and materialism on our society. And as you highlighted, the sometimes heartbreaking circumstances around the adoption process. How have your views changed over time?
My views have not changed because the situation hasn't changed. The world is full of more abandoned children than ever before. Many more than when I first learned about them at school and became committed to assist in my own little way. It is way worse now, and I am not proud of our human species in that regard. So that's a difficult one, and in a way I tried to write my story so it went in a full circle and came back to those views. But in actual fact, it hasn't gone back to those views because it's actually now in a place that's worse. So, that I found that part really difficult to write about. It was a difficult thing because there was a lot of editing involved in that part, and in some ways I'm not sort of fully satisfied that it comes out quite as I feel it could have been. But anyway, I did my best to try and just talk about those issues that maybe, my readers might consider, hey, look, this isn't so flash. We are not doing so good. But really where that actually has to happen most is in the parts of the world where the problem is the greatest. And that's really, I don't believe that's possible.
And in the book, that tenacity to make a difference, and you touched on earlier about the writing process, close to 3 years. How difficult has that process been, and what's been the impact on you personally, but also for your family and friends as well, when you revisit a lot of these themes again?
Wow, George, you do ask the curly ones. Okay, so 3 years. It seemed like 30. It was once I went into that place and descended into that time and dug up all that dirt. That cost me. Personally, for a start, I didn't have time for a lot of my friends and colleagues. I had to back out of my life into my writing space. And in that writing space, I became another person. I became, in fact, quite impaired in a lot of ways. So it wasn't good. So, and in the final pages of my book, I apologise for that, particularly to John and Mantosh, because I just wasn't there. This thing was there in my head, and then when it began to take so long, I got desperate to just complete it. And then my other son, Saroo, went abroad, and so really I was here a lot of the time alone. I often couldn't go to my art group. I stopped gardening. A lot of the things that were my passions and things that I enjoyed just fell by the wayside with this project. And if I had my choice again, George, I would not do it again. I would not have given up. I'm 66 years of age now. Life is very precious. And in the writing, of course, I came to the end and I realised, hey, this world, my life, you know, we're in the same place.
So on a personal level, I must say, not only seeing the movie, but also reading your book, and given the circumstances of today with COVID, what really jumps out for me is what matters most, and that is family. And I think you communicate that really clearly around the love of family. So I can appreciate the difficulty of the writing process, but as someone who's reading the book and also having experienced the movie, that's what jumps out for me, is that love for family.
But the other thing that I also hope is that I consider myself part of a bigger global family, and particularly in relation to the other women on this planet, of which, you know, of childbearing, family creating age there must be nearly 1 billion of us. I'd love to think my sisters in life would look after the children that have no parents, that they'd look after their sisters' children when they can't themselves. And I'm hoping my sisters globally will start to step up and complain and speak highly of the fact that we could do this better.
For sure.
I'm very, it's a pie in the sky probably, but I've got to have a little glimmer of hope that things will be better, that our human species will do things better.
So that extension of family, I guess, that you talk about it, you know, when I had my first daughter, you know, what was commonly said to me was it takes a village. And what you've just described there is a much broader global village of people stepping up and stepping in when potentially families can't. And certainly the book really portrays that story. That's what you and John did. And it was a belief that you both held very dearly about overpopulation, but also ensuring that these children that didn't have families could have a loving family.
Yes.
And completely echo George's sentiments around that really coming through as a key theme. One thing I'd love to ask you about is, you know, India and the Indian culture. You talk a lot in the book about, you know, your complete embrace of that, from the cuisine through to lifestyle and different aspects of the culture. What really drew you to India in the first place, and what made you think we'd love to adopt a child from India?
I think the fact was that I discovered the situation of need in India. And being that I'd had my vision of a brown child, well, Indians are brown, but also in my studies, that was a country that was really struggling with this burgeoning population. And there were so many children in need. And, you know, that really affected me. So that was one part of it. But the other part is, I think, as a country, as a community, as a society, the Indian people do inspire me. You know, regardless of how tough it is, they're there, putting a good face on it, trying their hardest, even if they're near starving. And I really had a prime example of that, because my boys had a first mother. And to meet Fatima and realise, hey, here is a woman, look what she's gone through. And yet she could put a smile on and comfort me and whisk a colourful sari around her and become truly regal as a woman. And I really admired that. I mean, obviously, through the country, there's such a vast difference in just even their religion and how they function, you know, male to female and so forth. But it was just an inspiring thing. And then down the track, of course, we had access to Australian statistics on migration and seeing the swathes of different population groups coming into the country. And I found out somewhere or other that when Indians come to Australia, they are highly successful as a population group. They were less likely to be dependent. They were successful in so many areas, but at the core of it, they had this intense family strength, and I really admired it. And of course, then finally, it became possible to apply to adopt from India. When the laws changed, instead of just being pushed directly to South Korea for adoption, as most of the adoption departments, well, especially here in Tasmania, did, they allowed applications to go to certain countries. And then all of a sudden they allowed applications to go to India. And I thought, oh, you beauty, this is perfect. And that's how it all came about. So it wasn't really just, you know, a desperation from a child to have a child from anywhere. You know, our hearts had moved to that direction quite exclusively at the end.
Have you got a signature dish, Sue, that you cook? I know in the book you explore that Indian cuisine. Tell us about your signature dish. What's your best Indian dish?
In the earlier years, I used to do a lot of kofta style dishes, but lately I tend to specialise in a lamb with chickpea curry.
Oh, that sounds delicious, Sue. That sounds delicious.
Because, you know, again, that particular diet was perfect to rehabilitate the boys and give them strength. And, you know, so it really suited us. And it was really a way of honouring their origins.
Absolutely.
You know, apart from being seriously yummy.
It certainly sounds yummy.
Sue, how is Saroo?
He's well. He's very fit and strong, and he's here at the moment to do some help me with my marketing with my book and also his book Little Lion. So he's well, and you know, Manny's fit and well. He's working in our business. He's got a lovely partner of 3 years. So really the boys in their manly state are doing well as possible. So that's very comforting. I mean, obviously I see so much less of Saroo, but Manny's there and he's a very kind-hearted person. And, you know, he sees that, of course, we miss Saroo very much. And he just lately said to me, he said, "Don't worry, Mum, I'll always be here for you and look after you." So he's a very kind man, and I really value that because he had a lot of reasons not to be a kind man.
Well, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, Sue, in terms of the work you and John in helping both Manny and also Saroo as well. You mentioned earlier about meeting Fatima, Saroo's biological mother, for the first time. I must say one of the most powerful pieces of cinema is when we see that particular scene when you're meeting Fatima for the first time. Share with us that experience.
Well, of course, that's sort of, you know, when you have a list of your big moments in life, you know, I guess, you know, for a lot of people it's the birth of a child, you know, and things like that. But for me, that's right up there because this woman was an intrinsic part of my life and never forgotten for a moment. So her value in my heart and soul was, I couldn't describe the power of that. And then to have this opportunity to meet her, in fact, was really life-changing for me. And, you know, just, I think about it often because it's just such a special part of me now and my psyche and memory. But, you know, when in the film, at the end, it sort of shows that, it does show that part as it happened. And the most special part of that meeting was how she reacted to me. So I had to ask her that question that I'd been longing to know the answer for is, did she always feel or have a sense that she was getting this feeling that her boy was all right, that her son was firstly alive and well and then happy? because I'd been sending my prayers to her through the heavens energetically for all this time. So the translator asked her that question, and I was just, right on the edge there because, I didn't know what she'd say. So she said straight out, yes, she always felt it. Just sort of, yes. I just couldn't believe the words when the translator spoke them. And then she saw that I had a big shock with that. And I really started to lose it then. I really was just so relieved, but also I was shocked. And so I started to cry, which is pretty normal. It still makes me get a bit teary. Anyway, because of that, she took it into her mind that I felt I would lose Saroo. And so there's a lot of talking going back and forth. And the translator said to me, "Don't cry. He is your son now. I give you my son." Well, that didn't help me at all. I just really lost it then. And she was trying to stop me crying and calm me. And really, if Saroo had got out of bed to be by my side, he could have resolved the dog issue. Anyway.
Where's their support when you need it?
Oh, yeah, right. No, so it was a sort of a very special moment in my life, and I'll take it to my grave. And, it was just the power of that woman. It was just immeasurable.
So what you
And she was
described
such a frail person.
What you described there brings together those themes of the sisterhood that I've heard you mention today, and also that theme of family. And it maybe in some ways, I wonder if it reconfirmed those hopes, those prayers that you were sending out to the universe on that energetic level that you describe. Did it reaffirm for you that they weren't wasted? They were actually caught on the other side of the globe and made a difference to someone.
Well, it might sound a bit kooky, but I do believe in the energetic world. I do believe between particular humans, we have more than just a spoken understanding, that it's a higher level, if you like, of emotion that is there for certain people. And really all through my life, I have been very interested in that and put quite a lot of effort into reading and exploring the concept of this energetic world. It's like the thing where you'll be at home and then all of a sudden you'll have this feeling that something's gone on and what's that about, and you'll become anxious. And then you'll find out afterwards, yes, that actually something did happen at that time, and particularly in relation to those closest to you. So that has happened to me many times, and I don't know if either of you have experienced it, but I really feel humans can sense that.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's that sixth sense, isn't it?
It's the power of
Yes,
attraction.
that's the word for it. That, really, when you stop and think about it, we've all probably got examples of that.
Yeah.
But the catch was, I didn't feel in return that she was receiving my thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to wait so long to actually know.
But what a beautiful affirmation of that effort during those years that you'd put in.
Yes,
so you had a
you.
desire to be, to have the character played by Nicole Kidman. How did you feel in that moment that you found out that she had agreed to play the role?
Well, in a way, there again, I just had a feeling that she'd take it on. I just, right from the beginning, said, I want her. I knew that the script went to the Film Festival Cannes, where a lot of the projects are tabled. I knew she would see it. And at the time that I knew this was happening, I knew when Cannes was happening, and John and I were actually in Sydney for my 60th birthday treat, and we're walking along, and I just had this real sense of calm that things would proceed nicely, and I would be very happy with the outcome. And then just out of the blue, we got a phone call walking along, and yes, she wanted it. So there again, I just felt that was as it should be. And in turn, when I met Nicole, she requested for me to go to Sydney later on and meet her when she was there. You know, we really clicked, and, you know, I again felt, yes, this will be good. And
How do you describe that
because
bond that you have with Nicole?
Well, we don't have a huge close relationship, but we do keep in touch. So we're back and forth with emails, and I keep her in the loop. And yeah, so it's you know, it's as I expect it to be normal. Obviously, you know, this is not going to be, you know, we call each other soul sisters, and that's where we sit.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So-
And that experience, I guess, of both being adoptive parents, have you shared any advice, you know, to each other around parenting?
I think the thing that we both have in common is that we've got a very great trust in the way things should be and turn out, that we just have to go with it and do our best every day in the moment, and that's what counts. Today counts because tomorrow is gone. And I got that sense that she understood that kind of thinking with me. And I think she did a remarkable role, and I know it was a tough one for her, because on the couple of occasions where I managed to gate crash the site, she shared that with me. You know, when she had that scene with Dev and the disclosure of the fact that I could have had children, you know, she came out of that house, which is just along my friend's place along the way here near us. You know, I could hear her as she left the house. She said, "Is Sue here? Is Sue here?" And she said it twice, and then just leapt into the caravan, the makeup van, and we just hugged each other and held each other. It was hell. You know, being an actress isn't all glory and fun. Some of the roles are tough, and that one was a tough one for her.
Well, she did an amazing job in the movie. We have a couple of final questions for you, Sue. And we've got 2 questions that we ask all our Impactology guests. And the first one is, if you're on a video call with your 18-year-old self, what advice would you provide?
Stay the course. Stick at it. At 18, you know where you should be, surely, by then. I mean, I got married at 17. At 18, work at it. Stay the course. Don't be led astray by other people. Just go ahead with your soul dream. And, you know, because at that age, it's very dangerous. You can be impacted by a lot of other people and things that could knock you off your course. You could quite as easily go totally the wrong way. So my advice to me would have been, stay the course. Don't change your path. In retrospect, that's easy for me to say because that's exactly what I did. But yeah, I think it makes life a whole lot easier, because for young people particularly, it's the indecision about what to do, what direction, what to think, feel, so on. It's so, from every direction, there's all these impacts and media and friends and people, they're all piling in on you. So you have to be strong.
That's amazing advice. I've got a 17-year-old daughter, so I'm certainly going to ensure that she sees his interview and take the advice on, absolutely. So we've got one final question, but it's actually a game of word association. So we'll share a word with you, and if you can share the first word that comes into mind.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, Tasmania,
Home.
COVID-19,
Hell.
red carpet,
So-so.
family,
All.
Nicole Kidman,
Love.
and finally home.
Life.
Sue, thank you so much for your time. We've absolutely loved listening to your story. The book certainly has made an impact on us, and we wish you all the very best.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Actually, you've been great interviewers. I've really enjoyed this because they're not all fantastic, but you two have been fabulous.
Likewise, Sue.
I
Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful day. Thanks, Sue.
Will do, for sure. You too.
Take
Keep
care.
safe.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.